Okay, please join me in welcoming Lays to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Let's take a deep breath because I'm nervous. I'm Lace. Today, I will share with you how I learned to automate away the toil. But first, a bit about me. I'm from Brazil. I live in Rio. I have worked in tech for 7 years by now. I have a bachelor's in information systems from the Federal University, Fluminense University. Learning to play piano was my newest hobby of this year, so it's a good challenge for the brain. I play with AWS since 2020, and since last year, I'm an AWS community builder, and it's because of this program that I'm at this stage today with you. So, how to automate away the toil? The first thing that we need to look out is to start to pay attention. Because when you start to pay attention on what you do, you can see what can be improved on your workflow. And by paying attention, you start to care about the stuff that you do. So when you pay attention, the consequence is taking care, putting a bit of your feelings on your work. So let's define attention. Attention is a concentration of awareness with the degree to which we are distracted, stressed, or otherwise mentally. Oops, sorry, I was reading the wrong slide. Uh, Attention is the concentration of awareness on some phenomena to the exclusion of other stimuli. So, in other words, is when we focus our mind on some tasks and ignore the rest. But on Daniel Goleman's book, Focus, The Hidden Driver of Excellence, we have got this quote where Wagner found that errors increase with the degree to which we are distracted, stressed, or otherwise mentally overloaded. This is where our attention starts to pay a price. On the same quote, in these circumstances, a cognitive control system that normally monitors errors we might make may inadvertently act as a mental apogee, increasing the likelihood of exactly that error. So, why am I saying all of that? We spend 40 hours per week putting on energy at work, and it's easy to ignore the details when we don't feel excited about it, when some task starts to be is attached to some bureaucracy, and it's in those tasks that our attention starts to suffer. And then is in with that most of the things that we start to do start to look like toil. But what is toil? On the Google Authority ebook, they have a definition of toil, but let's not Google our way out of this. So what do I think toil is? One thing is that when we don't do all the things that we should do, toil for me is when I have an incident that happened because we didn't follow all the good practices that we preach every day in tech, like good architecture, documentation, and automation. So I have this comic strip from my friend André Noel from Brazil. I hope that you enjoy it. And another thing that makes things look like toil for me is when I start to use Ctrl-C and V more than I would like to. And those both things is the most highlighting part of what I do that became a toil for me in the long run. So let's a quick recap. Our attention is limited and requires energy. We see everything has toil, and most of our energy is going away in tasks that could be automated. How can I avoid the waste of energy? We start with a simple action. We start to care. Toil drains our energy and attention. And how do we avoid the waste of energy? By caring what we do. Okay, take a deep breath. Water. So how can you care? Go. you can start care about the process. So discover and planning. We all know all those rules about the agile environment where we need to do the discovery, do the proper planning. But sometimes we go horse and we forget about the process. The process is important. It can't be like a bureaucracy, but some guardrails are needed for us to keep us in check, right? Because we developers, we have a lot of flexibility to do our work, and then the process keeps us in check. Like Werner told us earlier today, be a frugal architect. So we care about the process. Why? Why should care about the process? Why should be the advocates of documentation, architecture, and everything? There was an incident and one application went offline. This product was running on ECS with EC2 and an outscaling setup. After the investigation, we discovered that the web was running with Spot instances and the AWS didn't have more machine for us. Why did they have more EC2 for us? Because we are running on previous generations of EC2 instance and we were doing the proper maintenance of this infrastructure. How could we have avoided that? We could have set up alerts for the auto-scaling group because we only discovered that the product was offline when the client complained about it. We could be using Fargate instead of EC2. We could be doing active maintenance of the infrastructure. And we didn't have any infrastructure as code for these applications. So I was able to fix this incident by going on the console and update the cloud, the EC2 outscaling configuration by hand. But if I get that on infrastructure as code, that would be easier. So these are kind of problems that we have with legacy systems. But we are in 2023, and I don't believe that in 2023 we can bypass the rules by not using infrastructure code, by doing everything by our hand, because one day we'll pay the price, and the price can be an incident. And by the way, this incident happened 3 more times, and it wasn't prioritized to fix it. So I hope that I can shut down that system next year. Good luck for me. So another thing that we can start to take care of is about code governance. Care about the rules. The process are guardrails. They are a kind of a bureaucracy, but a good bureaucracy that keep us in check. Now we can have a kind of a rule set, but for code. Okay, I lost myself in here. When we are set up a new project, we have to worry about security, CI/CD, the infrastructure. This screenshot shows you all the setup that I need to do for a Node.js application, the Node configuration, the Terraform infrastructure, and all the GitHub Actions pipeline. So it's a lot to take care of. It's a lot of things that we need to take care every time that we start a new project. So every time that you do it, here you can see where some incidents can happen because I can set up the GitHub workflows wrong or copy pasting something wrong. Like all developer has your preferences on the configuration of Node.js projects, so it's a lot to copy and paste from. So how do you automate that? By using a cookie cutter, not this one. This one. Raise a hand if you know this library. Cookie cutter from Python? Show of hands. Cookie cutter is a Python library that helps you to construct boilerplates, project templates for you to use on your company or on your personal projects. How do I use that to automate my life? An example close to home. On my company, we use Atlantis to deploy Terraforms to AWS. And as you saw on the previous screenshot, I have a lot of Terraform code that I need to take care in every project. So For each application, I need to configure the backend, the tags, and all the versions, the providers, everything that I need to start to get a new infrastructure running. So here, it's hidden, but it's a lot of Terraform applications that need the same boilerplate. The first thing that you could start to do is copy and paste for every project. But here is where the cookie cutter shines. I can have a cutter of a Terraform project where I have the backend, the locals, outputs, all the basic that I need to start a new application up and running, configured by a cookie cutter JSON that is the file on the left side of the slide, where you put you are able to put the variables that you need to ask the user to input. And here is something that it really helped me, because we have more than 30 cost centers at my company. Each team has its own, and it's hard to find the one that represents my team. So I put all the 30 cost centers in the cookie cutter, so I just like press a button on the CLI to choose the team that I am from, and then you fill the Terraform code automatically. And then I have all the code. The cookie cutter works, has a template source, so you can, all the inputs that are on the cookie cutter JSON, they are inputs on the files. They can be overwritten by the template. And then I have a post-generation project that do post-evaluations that I'm not able to do in cookie cutter because it has some limitations. So, for example, this is just the basic, but I want to give my coworkers the possibility to have a CloudFront setup or the ECS setup. I could have all those files here, and on the input asks if the person wants to add the ECS or the CloudFront module, and then on the post-generation project, evaluate that condition and add or not those files. So I can get a 30 minutes copy and paste job down to 2 minutes, just using a template and using the cookie cutter CLI. And then this is kind of dev experience side, but when you give the developer the ability to do a 30 minutes task in 2, you deliver more value to your work, you deliver more value to your company, and your developer won't get bored or won't think that's dull and don't pay enough attention to do this task, because we know that infrastructure is critical, and if you don't review your pipeline correctly, even the pull request on GitHub, you can have some catastrophic incident. Now we have the templates. Now we can validate these rules with Git hooks. Git hooks, I like to use pre-commit. You can use the standard hook of Git, but I really like to use pre-commit because it adds the abstraction to the hooks. A note about abstraction. Abstraction is really important. We all know that like Terraform, Python, all these things abstract the infrastructure or the compute, but we need to know what's under the hood so we can properly debug. So adopt tools that abstract the complexity for you, but know how to deal with that complexity if you need it. So an example of a cookie cutter, I have here one for Terraform. On my team, we follow the conventional commits for commits. So I have a rule that validates if it is following the rules of the conventional commits. And then I have from Anton Babenko, that is here on reInvent. I met him yesterday. He's awesome. The rules for validating Terraform code. So why should you use this? One thing for me, you saw earlier, also if you got the Vogel skill note, that we are all about the cost. So we could have those rules validated on the CI/CD, on GitHub Actions, but these are like tiny tasks that could run on the developer machine. So you can get a set of rules that you can enforce on the developer computer, and other rules that you can enforce on GitHub that depends on the kind of compliance that you want to have. So this one, I have a format for Terraform, the validation, the docs, and the lint. And there is tons of plugins all available out of the box on the Precommit website. You also have others made by the community. You just link them to your YAML file and install Precommit on your project, and you run every time that depends on the trigger that you have on Git. So I have hooks that run every time I commit. I have rules every time I push it. So choose the kind of a governance of the code that you want, and then use Precommit to automate it. And running these on the developer machine, you can save some money on your CI/CD, and the developer can think this is boring. He can bypass this, but then you start with the why. Why we have this? Because we can have a better code, we can have more reliability on our software, and we can speed up the development and the experience. So you go a bit on the why to convince everyone that this bureaucracy is a good bureaucracy that you can follow. So if you care, you can save time for your future self. That's why this talk was made. This talk was the output of the New Voices pilots on the AWS Community Builders program. And this phrase, for me, was a light bulb in a talk that I did in Brazil a couple months ago, that all of the automations that I do, all the blog posts that I do, they start because I care enough to get bothered with the system and change the system on the things that I think that is good. So by getting these things automated, creating the rules, creating this code of governance, you can make your life, the company life, and the developer life better when you add a little bit more of abstraction without the developer needing to worry about all the things that he needs to get done to put an application and production. So if you care, you can automate almost everything in your life and save time for your future self. Don't wake up with PagerDuty alerting you about an incident. Thank you.